This is Byrne, the Anadromist, and welcome to a very special edition of the Anadromist where we link up everything that's connected in the larger sphere of the Anadrome together into one ball. Stick around, I think you're going to find it interesting.
We're going to devote our energies to sports and gardening, all the cultural pursuits as far as they're concerned. In fact, we're going to put the goons to sleep. Meanwhile, we dig.
Welcome to the Anadrome. This is Byrne, your Anadromist, and I've decided to do something different today. I've got several different YouTube channels, websites, Facebook pages, and such. And I thought what I would do today is to show you how they all fit together and why I started doing them. I have been working on ideas for, well, quite a few years. And sometime around the year 2010, I thought to myself, well, you know, a lot of this stuff is just sitting in my head and it's not coming out. And I was feeling a bit like I really needed to get some of these things out of my system. So what I decided to do was to start a website, and specifically for essays. I've never called it a blog site because blogs to me are like people sharing recipes or people, saying, this is what I did when I woke up this morning kind of thing, or, little quirky things. But I was in the mood for full-blown essays, classically written essays. And that's why I started the first site, which was called The Anadromous Life. And one of my thoughts, the word anadromous came to me because I was working with wildlife and nature in Alaska, taking people on tours. And one of the things we did was we took people on tours of the Chilkat River. And so we would have to talk about salmon and how they swim back upstream. And the scientific name for fish that swim upstream is that the fish are anadromous. Ana meaning turn back against, and drome meaning speed or direction. So it was the anadromous was just a word. It's just like, yeah, we have to live kind of going against the stream, getting back upstream to spawn, like salmon do. And in the end, salmon die. And I was thinking to myself, well, I'm not getting any younger. In 2010, I was about, 55 years old. And I thought to myself, well, this is the point of what I've been working towards all these years, is to get something out. Why not doing it in book form? Well, I didn't feel I was even ready for some of my ideas until about the year 2000. I started thinking maybe I had some ideas that were worth spreading. Prior to that, I had been giving lectures in different places, including libraries and with different arts groups and things like that. Quite a few lectures were given at the Labrie Fellowship in Weimar, Switzerland. And ever since I'd been there when I was younger, they've always kind of been my intellectual and spiritual home base. So I had given a series of lectures there, one on time and memory back in 1993, another one a few years later on images, which I have a very rough recording of, but you can hear everything I said, but that's available to anyone who subscribes and contributes a certain amount of money through PayPal. I'll mention that a little later. But things had been accumulating. I had actually, one of the things I had done when I was working in Alaska, I worked for about 10 years at a radio station there, KHNS. And I had done a spoken word program called The Word as Spoken, and in which I would play different sorts of spoken word recordings, a long subject. But in doing so, I had also constructed an 88-part history of the 20th century, which was both recordings and playing recordings from all aspects of the 20th century and an interpretation of what had been going on in the 20th century. And so I had been working on ideas for a long, long time, not to mention writing 2 novels, which I'll mention a little bit later. Anyway, 2010 came and I started thinking about, a friend had used WordPress for a blog site, and I started thinking, I want to start doing some essays. And one of the things I decided I wanted to do in the essays was to make them perennial rather than topically based for like one specific moment. Occasionally I will do something that's based primarily on a moment and may not have that much relevance later, but that's really rare. Mostly I make things to get larger ideas out of my head, and so it's not about immediately, it's not about the immediate moment as much as it is putting the immediate moment in a larger context. So I started the Anadromous Life, and that started going, it started off very slow. I mean, it's just an essay site. I did, I believe, almost no publicity for it. I did have a Facebook page by then. I think I got that in 2009. And so occasionally I would share what I was doing on Facebook. That was it. I didn't have that many Facebook friends. I've never been one to try to accumulate lots of friends. If I have lots of friends on Facebook, it's not because I sought them as much as people, particularly in Georgia. I have at least half my friends on Facebook are from Georgia, and they tend to like the photo essays I do on various Georgian subjects. So that's attracted a lot of attention here. But that's just the way it goes here. Georgians use Facebook in a different way than I think Americans do. In 2012, I started a project called Gravity from Above. It was in 2005 that I started doing puppetry in Alaska through the Lilliputian Puppet Sideshow. And eventually, with my friend Karsten Card Hyatt, we started doing another spin-off of that called Reckoning Motions. So I created these little things, but I realized as I was telling people in Alaska about puppetry that there were no good documentaries on the subject that I could recommend. There still aren't. That is to say, there's no overarching documentary about puppetry that really tells you. There's documentaries about individuals or a moment or something, but nothing that really tells you about the art of puppetry. So I decided to work on that. I actually started getting the idea around 2006. But it wasn't until 2012 that I actually went on the road and started doing that. So I started another essay site for my journeys called Gravity from Above, which is not only about puppetry, but also about other forms of art that I would run into along the way. And so it kind of developed a life of its own. And so that's the next thing. So it was the Anadromous Life and then Gravity from Above, which I'm still working on, the documentary all these years later. Because I've never gotten much money for doing it, but I'll talk more about that in a moment. Then in 2012, I also started the Anadromous Life YouTube channel. And part of the reason for that was that I was starting to collect some video material that maybe was worth sharing. And I thought, let's use a YouTube channel to do that. Also, it was good to hook the YouTube videos up to the Gravity from Above essay site so people would see what I was doing. And I would put little snippets of puppet shows and eventually Georgian music and dance and other things on Gravity from Above. And around 2013, I believe it was, I also started a Gravity from Above Facebook page, which is still active. So those things are the foundation, really, of my kind of anadrome, the world of the anadromist, the people who swim the other way, or at least me. So now, at some point, something began to happen on the Anadromous Life channel that I started to take notice of. One, I started putting on these videos of Georgian puppeteers. Georgian puppeteers, but especially Georgian music and dance. Some of those videos, particularly of Georgian dancing, have had thousands upon thousands of hits. I think some of them are over 60 or 70,000 now. Others have had, quite a few hits. And what's interesting about that is that had I been monetizing anything or even thinking about it, it would have been, I suppose I could have made a little money off of those. They still produce. The other thing was that I started putting puppet videos on there, and I put I put video versions of my puppet lectures that I gave at L'Abri on the Anadromous Life video channel. And to my surprise, an hour and a half lecture also has over 20,000 or more watches, which is pretty fantastic to me that people have watched that a lecture of mine that many times. And I've gotten a lot of decent feedback from it. Of course, you always worry about the 4 or 5 people who've pressed dislike. It's just like, why? But that's just life. No one's going to like everything you do. There's no point in even really worrying about it. But, it's funny how those little they were like, what did you not like about my lecture? Well, sure, people can find all sorts of things. And in fact, people would even dislike some of the Georgian dance videos, which I found interesting because I was thinking it's probably the dancers themselves, not all of them, but saying you didn't get me right, something like that. That is to say, it was someone from another dance troupe, or it was just some small thing. So I don't worry about that. Nevertheless, it struck me that wow, I'm doing a lot of video work that seems to be paying off. So as I noticed other developments in the world and how they were being discussed on YouTube, I started noticing that there were people I watched some of the Jordan Peterson material, and I started noticing that this Canadian psychologist was doing lectures on the psychological significance of biblical stories. Sometimes these would be over 2 hours long, and he was getting 1 million views. And I thought to myself, well, I've got a lot more ideas up my sleeve. But the way I had organized the Anadromous Life channel was that it was mostly for documents. And I thought to myself, I need to start another channel that's not for documents, that's direct face-to-face. Because that's one of the things, is if you just do documents like I do on that channel, it's not personal enough to inspire anyone to, it takes actually having a face on YouTube, or at least having a personality, neither of which I really incorporated too much of on my Anadromous Life channel. So I started the Anadromist. One of the other reasons that I started the Anadromist is because I found out how much I was, or rather wasn't, going to be receiving for either the Gravity from Above documentary or the work I had thought I was going to be doing here in Georgia. So once I realized that, I said, I have an issue. I've gotten myself to Georgia. I've kind of closed the door on Alaska. Not that I couldn't go back, but I need to think about something else. And so I started, but I wasn't thinking about, panicking or anything. I said, let's start something long-term. Let's make a YouTube channel where I can interact more and really discuss ideas more. So that was the point of the Anadromist. Along with that, I then started the Anadromous Life Facebook page, just for people to interact a little over there, and to also use a Facebook page to bring more of these things together. And I started near the end of the year my Georgian Crossroads channel, which is a channel both for my own experience in Georgia, but also I've been watching so many videos of people who make YouTube videos about Tbilisi, for instance, and they do the same things in every video. That is, there's a kind of a triangle down at the bottom, and everyone kind of stays down there, walks on Rustaveli, and that's it. They come for a few days. And I really am not a fan of that kind of travel. That is to say, the kind of travel where you just hit the sites you're supposed to hit when you show up somewhere. And my own Tbilisi, my own Georgia, is a very different world. And I thought I would like to share it also just to give people a flavor of what life is like here. And maybe if some people are finding themselves staying here for longer, which is possible, they will get some sort of sense of, well, how do you live in this city? How do you find maple syrup? How do you find, like right now, my biggest challenge is finding a table. I mean, there's one here. It's a nice wooden table, but it's goes with this apartment. So when I move, I can't take it with me, and I need another one anyway. So, especially if I want to have people over for dinner, which I really want to do. So that is kind of like the Anadrome, you might say. All the parts that are part of the Anadromous life and Gravity from Above and the Georgian Crossroads are all actually kind of connected and overlap. The recent video I did on my trip to Armenia could easily be a document that would be on the Anadromous life, because it's really a document exploring something. And it explores the Sergei Parajanov, the great Armenian, Georgian, Ukrainian filmmaker. Yes, it's all three. And goes into the museum, and there's lots of stuff related to puppets and such. That could easily be on that one. It could easily, though, with the ideas involved, be on the Anadromist. And it could easily, and of course it is on Georgian Crossroads. Just to give the Georgian Crossroads a little bit of, class. Not that it doesn't have class already, but, give it more. So, and interestingly enough, one of the things I started doing, I have actually started seeing some sort of financial support starting to dribble in from the Anadromist, which, quite frankly, I needed to get through to where I am now. And I am very grateful for that. And rather than doing it through Patreon, and I haven't got enough subscribers to do it through YouTube yet, rather I have been doing it through PayPal. And essentially that also gets people behind a paywall, so to speak, so that they get more material. And in fact, one of the things I want to know is are you folks out there ready for the next load of things? There'll be a couple more things that I'm going to send. And I just want to make sure I'm going to send an email to the people who have subscribed and supported me. Well, I'm going to send a video, just an email, making sure that I'm not just going straight into your junk mail with this. So we'll talk about that, but I'll do that through the email. But the point is, you get extra lectures like the image lecture. You'll get, soon you'll get one of my Word is Spoken radio shows, and other things are coming and such. Besides, someone's honking outside because the way Georgians park their cars, they're always parking in front of each other. So they honk in order that someone comes and moves their car. And I've heard it go on for hours. So excuse them. They're just being, it's just the way life is here. One thing I did want to mention is there's actually, so there's kind of a section, you might say, for ideas, for puppetry, music, and the arts, for my Georgian life, but there's actually one more part. There's actually another hidden YouTube channel that I'm slowly, it's not hidden, I haven't done anything to hide it, I just haven't at all told anyone about it. And I'm not telling you about it today, except to say it exists. Good luck trying to find it. Where it's for my creative side. And yes, there's a whole creative side to me that I have not done anything with. And that includes art. So, for instance, I have spent time doing a little bit of painting here and there. For instance, check this out. This is one of my pieces of art, and I do that kind of thing. And I work with both painting, but also I do things like take other images and turn them into something like this. Then there is video material that I've been working with for years, and sometimes it looks like this. And then sometimes it looks like this. And in fact, there is a half-hour movie that I've been toying with finishing for quite a while, and eventually that will show up in my creative world. And but I'll let you know the closer I get to actually unveiling that. Besides making art and videos, I also do things like write novels and write little puppet plays. I actually put out a book of 3 of my puppet plays, which I would love to be able to sell you, but it's in my storage unit in Alaska, and there is no way for me to get it to you. And even when I go back to Alaska and ship everything here someday, I hope, I pray, this year, the problem I have is if you do want to buy it, where am I going to put it that you can find it? That is to say, I mean, physically, because sending things from here is a real problem. So that's like something I have to, if anyone would like to function as like a way station in America where I could send all the copies of that and you'd get a little percentage of that, let me know. We can discuss it. It's a small little book that sells for like, I don't know, what does it sell for? $5, $10, something like that. I don't remember. But the point is that, I mean, that would be a great thing to use as something to offer to people for free if they, sign up and support me on the channel. So it's something to think about. Like I said, I can't do anything till I get it, and I have to think about doing that. But I'm sure things will work out, and I'm not going to worry about it right now. Also, I have a finished novel called The 5 Masters of Reality, which is kind of a spiritual journey novel, except it's not a spiritual journey novel. It's kind of darker than that. And it's more about how we don't search. But I'm not going to tell you too much about that right now. I have to think about the best way to get that out. It's been ready for quite a few years. But then there's another novel that's I've written a 400-page rough draft for called The Longhouse. Why aren't these available for sale? I've tried a little bit, but the problem is, just when I finished the novels, the entire marketing world changed, and things are brutal in the world of fiction. Because now what they want is so specific. They want you to have done a certain thing by the second or third page. They want I wrote the book like a 20th century novelist. They want the books written like 21st century novelists, which is to say highly, highly commercial without any regard for meaning. That is to say, meaning is really low on the spectrum of what they're looking for these days. And that's what my books are all about. But I think the Longhouse, which is the name of the 400-page draft, which is quite a frightening story, will find a way out because I've hidden everything under the guise of, well, I'm calling them philosophical mysteries, but someone could say, oh, it's a horror story. Great. If you want to call it a horror story, great. It'll get you on that level, but that's not what it is. So you'll just have to wait on that one. Because the actual physical copy, I wrote it by hand, is sitting in Alaska. Although I do have some translated chapters here, but I have all the translated chapters of the Five Masters of Reality sitting on my computer, so I can do something with that someday. Anyway, so that's just the world of Byrne. What are my plans for the coming year? Well, the first plan is to finish up the How We Got Here series, which is taking a while. And the reason it's taking a while is because the next one is the tough one. And it's the one I can really step into the mud on and get people to really misunderstand what I'm doing with it from all sides of the political spectrum. Everyone will think it's one thing or another when it's not any of those things. The next chapter in How We Got Here deals with basically how the religious right was formed and how what we might call the social justice post-hippie left was formed, which gets into such things as the Jesus people, the rise of right-wing political consciousness, the hooking up of a right-wing political consciousness to Christian, evangelical Christianity. And on the other side, gay rights, feminism in particular, how the AIDS crisis created a whole new world of propaganda. And in fact, what ends up happening is you have two propaganda blocks fighting each other, neither seeing the other as human, each one having issues that if you push them very far, they start pointing the finger at you and you become the enemy. And of course, what I'm going to do is try, like, a demolitions expert, to go in there and defuse the bomb to show what I can. I'm sure I can't. It might blow up in my face on either side. And I'm just simply going to do what I do. But that one, what I've thought about doing is just skipping to the next ones because I'm much more comfortable with what happens after that. And I'm pretty comfortable dealing with the material of the rise of the culture war, which some people on the left still don't believe there is one. And every now and then I'll read these going like, this is just something right-wing people say. Meanwhile, how dare you? Yeah, you get what I'm saying. Also, I want to do a series on the symbolic meaning of horror films. I've spent quite a while reading horror literature, watching horror films, and although I'm going to give it a title that's a bit more poetic than that, because that is the point. A symbolic meaning of horror films is kind of like the least poetic, symbolic way of saying this you could possibly imagine. Similarly, I eventually want to get to a series, and I've been asked about some of the implications of my time series, dealing with the subjects of evil, forgiveness, and memories, things like that. Again, with a better title than that. And there's a lot I've thought about these subjects. Also, as a kind of a every now and then kind of thing, I want to do a series called Why Blank Matters. And this is dealing with different people, particularly, who have risen up in the last few years. And not all of one type of person by any means, but, for instance, I could do one, why Jordan Peterson matters, or why PewDiePie matters, or why Billie Eilish matters, or why Tim Pool matters, just to throw names out, just kind of randomly that I've been thinking about. Because, and it isn't that I'm going to say, oh, they matter because they're really nice, or they matter because, but rather that somehow that this person's arrival on the stage, in one way or another, signals some sort of change in something of the zeitgeist of where we are. And I also want to, people have noticed, and you should notice that when I'm doing my How We Got Here series, I do tend to notice things about music and such, and maybe I know a little bit more. And the answer to that question is, oh yeah, I do. And so I'm probably going to start tackling musical subjects. I'll probably start with, tidbit here and a tidbit here as we go. But eventually I might do a whole series. my main question and problem with this, and I already ran into this because I used not even the music, just some imagery from Billie Eilish, was that this is where the copyright vultures really come down on you. The music, for some reason, even more than the films, the copyright vultures are there. And I think it's because the bots that run around looking for musical samples are so good, they can detect it when you slowed it down 15%. They can detect it when you've changed it and added echoes and such, all of which I've tried. So when I do musical subjects, it's obvious not only am I, for instance, I am going to attempt to do Billie Eilish because I think she's a very interesting figure for this time. But what I'm going to do is, hey, well, I'm not making anything on these videos anyway, but I'm thinking of the future because, like I say, I'm not making things that are just for the moment. I'm making things that are perennials, so that these are things to a segment of history. Even when I discuss where we are, it's so if in 10 years from now you look at that, you'll go like, oh, this is really interesting. This person arrived on the stage at this moment that signaled something different in the culture. So I think what I'll do if I do decide to go copyright nuts with some of the stuff is just put on enough stuff that either they just simply claim it all and I get nothing. I don't get anything anyway. The only money I get is from support. YouTube doesn't pay me a cent because I'm not there. Although I do have amazing amount of minutes because people are watching my really long videos and enough people are watching it that the hours are just like through the roof. I just am not there as far as the number of, I need over 1,000, I need over 1,000 subscribers on YouTube to start thinking about monetizing this. So, will you help me? Will you help, tell anybody about this? Please do. So that's what's coming up on the Anadromist. What's coming up on Gravity from Above is, as far as the documentary goes, I've got over 40 hours of interviews with puppeteers. It's amazing stuff. But I have to get the project edited. There is a way here for me to do that, and I'm just going to have to work the system. But the main problem, so financially at that up to the editing, I think I can do it. But here's where the I'm stuck for money. I need to use samples of puppet films. I've already sampled how much those will cost. There's about $12,000 or more just on puppet rights for puppet films that I need to find, and that would have to drop out of the sky. Or I would have to start figuring it out also, and to secure the rights to use the video imagery, particularly for the Quay brothers and Jan Schwenkmeyer. Also, I have to find someone to compose a musical score, which I should be able to do here in Tbilisi, but we'll see. So anyway, Gravity from Above wants to go forward. My brain is more, now that I am freed of my responsibilities here and I am receiving Social Security money, which is keeping me alive here. That means that I really want to finish up Gravity from Above as soon as I can. So hopefully this year I can get that thing edited. Out of 40 hours of interviews plus all the other footage I've shot, I should be able to put a documentary together. One would think. It's all in my brain. I know how to do it. Evidently, I can edit, so it's just a question of getting the money for these. I need the money for the music. I need the money for the film rights for a few films, and maybe more, but we'll see. I'm sure more. There's always more, and then I have to get someone to look at the thing and go like, "Ooh, we like that. That's interesting." Well, that's why I'm wanting to spend more money on it to make it look good. I could easily put something together now, put it on YouTube, and have people go like, a few people would do this. I want a few more people to see the film. I'd like to show it at film festivals and things like that. Georgian Crossroads. What are we doing for 2020? Well, I've got about 10 episodes already kind of not put together, but I've got the material ready for it. And so I just need to then just do an introduction and talk over it, and lots more planned for the future. One thing I was thinking is I want to start doing interviews with Georgians on different subjects related to art, music. I have some nice interviews on theater and puppet theater that I've got a long version, which you can see here, of a great interview with Georgi Abkhazaba. That name kind of trips my tongue, as many Georgian names do. But I'm going to do a shortened version and put that on Georgian Crossroads, and I've got plenty of other things I can put on Georgian Crossroads. Also, I want to look more at daily life, talk with people even about food. And even I've been asked by Georgians, can you do something on politics and things here? And I'm going like, oh, let me think about that, because I don't want it, again, a place where you can step into it. But I'm thinking of a way to do so. People want to hear what you really think about their country. And so, I've been here for officially over a year now. So I'm starting to think, what can I do? The most important thing for me in 2020 is getting my container here from Alaska, and it weighs over 10,000 pounds. I have to go back to Alaska, put everything into a container, ship it here. This is going to be some sort of Herculean task. That's 5,000 pounds, 5,000 kilos, 10,000 pounds worth of stuff. And yeah, I want it all here. I want my library here. I'm living here. I've discovered that my permit is good for 5 years. I'm going to go with that. I'll get the permit extended after that. I am not worried. My life feels good here now. And so I am doing that. I also have to find a permanent place to live. This is a nice place, but there are several reasons why staying here would not be ideal at all. And so it's a good place to be for now. But I'm going to need someplace permanent for my library. Although there's 3 rooms here. There's almost enough room for my library, but it would be a tight squeeze. So that is where the Anadromous life, the Anadromist, Gravity from Above, Georgian Crossroads, everything in the Anadrome, and the mysterious hidden creative world of Byrne, everything in the Anadrome is this year. And that's where we're going to try to get to. So I am sure I've talked too long. What else is new? And as they say in Georgia, Gilisov Achal Tselz. Happy New Year. And I hope to have more discussions with you. Start thinking now, for those of you on the Anadromous site, what questions you would like for me to answer. Eventually on Georgian Crossroads, I will be doing Georgian questions too, but I don't have quite enough people to think about doing that yet. So, Nachuamdis, that's goodbye in Georgian. I will see you all very soon. And depending on which channel you're watching this on, you will think what you think, and stay in touch. Help me get more subscribers. Share the videos. And really think about becoming a contributing subscriber if you want more stuff. Oh, what I'm going to do on Georgian Crossroads? What I'm going to do is pass on Georgian music to you, which is really impossible to find. And much of the stuff doesn't exist on any sort of physical copy. And so what I'll do is, for people who become members eventually on Georgian Crossroads, you'll get a subscription service of Georgian music. And I think that's pretty cool. So, yeah. Keep swimming against the stream.
A people without history is not redeemed from time. For history is a pattern of timeless moments.